Okay. Awesome. All right, you guys can see my screen, correct? Cool. All right, well, welcome everybody. Happy Friday. This is our weekly lunch and learn, and we are Tech Hub South Florida. If you guys don't know who we are, and I am Monica Rojas. I am the membership and inclusion specialist for Tech Hub. And today we have two special guests. We have Cary Stamp, founder of Cary Stamp & Co., and Josh Weller, financial advisor at Cary Stamp & Co. They're going to be teaching us a little bit more about sustainable investing in 2021, and we're super excited for this. And I also wanted to add that Cary Stamp is a sponsor for our Monday Night Tech Talks, and we will be doing in-person Tech Talks starting next week at Boca Code. So we're super excited about that. And Vanessa's here representing Boca Code and Rebecca as well. So our sponsor is not South Florida Business Wealth. I'm sorry, this is the wrong presentation, but this is our mission. So we build South Florida, we're building South Florida into a tech hub, and we do so by creating a collaborative, welcoming community that allows people to engage, to be excited about what's going on, and to just learn at events like this one. So if you guys want to learn more about Tech Hub, feel free to check out techhubsouthflorida.org. I will drop our link in the chat, or you guys can send me an email. All right. So this is a little bit more about us. We are a nonprofit that's membership driven. So we really focus on engineering and IT, different industries throughout the tech space, and that includes startups. We have big companies like FPL, City Furniture, and we have about 200 plus corporate members in our organization, and that includes Miami-Dade, Palm Beach County, Broward. So we're really passionate about developing the region as an ecosystem. All right, so these are just a few of our current members that I was kind of telling you guys more about. I'm sure you guys have seen Boca Code, Office Depot, City Furniture, and a lot of these local leaders are from these companies. So we really appreciate them here showing up and supporting us, as well as everybody else who's here today. So this is a little bit more about our membership. So if you guys know about Tech Hub, we do a little bit of everything. And our mission here is to be more of like the regional organization that brings everybody together, right? So that is why we have speaking opportunities like this one. We have job listings, resume distributions. That way everybody's aware of what's going on in our ecosystem. We also have member profiles on our website that allows our community to see some of the members in South Florida. And we also have different peer groups where we connect leaders and thought leaders and just people that are like-minded in different industries. We also do a lot of PR support. So if anybody is a member and wants to get their name out there, that's another way we do support. Okay, so this is our weekly events. So during the pandemic, we were virtual, but now we're slowly getting back into in-person events. And the weekly Tech Talk will be held bi-weekly now, and we're going to be rotating from Miami, Broward, Boca, and West Palm Beach. So if you ever want to meet people in the different parts of the region, start looking on our website and seeing what's going on and who's speaking at these events. And it's all about networking at the end of the day and meeting people from all over. So on Tuesdays, we alternate community coffees, which are panel discussions with local business leaders on hot topics. And then we also invite innovative, awesome people in our South Florida tech community for podcasts. So you can actually find our podcast on Apple, on Spotify, and even YouTube. So we do upload all our virtual events on YouTube. That way, if you're not able to attend and you're super pumped about it, you can still see it later. And last but not least, we do have our weekly lunch and learn. And this is one of my favorite events because it's on Friday and you get to ask questions and you get to hear from experts like Cary and Josh. And actually, I think, okay. So if you look at these pictures, these are just a few of our awesome members. Cary, I thought you're in one of these pictures, but you're not. So I was going to give you a shout out, but I have to update it.
I might have been one of the thin guys back then.
I think you're the guy in the back in the hackathon picture. Yeah. All right. So last but not least, we do have Resume Distributor. I told you guys a little bit more about that. So if you are looking for a job, check out our job board. And then you can also upload your resume and all the members can receive your resume. So make sure it's up to date. And we have awesome members like Boca Code that can review them, or even myself and Nikki Caboose, our VP of Development. We're always happy to help. Right. So we do also have a Slack channel. I love Slack just because we have about 4,000 people here in the Slack channel, and we're starting to be aware of what the other events are going on, what everyone else is doing, how we can connect and move forward. All right, awesome. So that was our presentation for Tech Hub South Florida. We're super excited. I'm going to hand over the mic to Josh and Cary, who are going to walk us through sustainable investing in 2021. Thank you guys all for being here.
Thanks, Monica. Can you make us co-hosts if you didn't already,
Yes.
or is Josh?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Good deal. I'm Cary Stamp with Cary Stamp and Company. I'm a certified financial planner. I've been a financial advisor for over 30 years now. And my associate, Josh Weller, who is going to be doing most of the talking today, is a subject matter expert on sustainable investing. And it's really what he started his financial advisory career to do. I'll give you a little bit of background about both of us, and then I'll turn it over to Josh, who would like to share some of the things that you might find fairly interesting. So we're a full service financial advisory and planning firm. We've got 12 team members here in South Florida. We also have offices in Chicago and Stamford, Connecticut. And what I would say to you is that over 100 of our clients are millionaires. They have assets in excess of liquid assets in excess of $1 million. But they didn't all start out that way. And you don't need to start out that way to start working with somebody that can help you on your financial path. So if you want to achieve financial independence, my advice is that the sooner you find somebody to help you along that path, the better off you will be. Everybody on the financial advisory staff at the team has at least one professional designation or degree. All of our people attend last year over 60 hours of professional continuing education in a whole variety of topics. We're independent. We have no bias. We're a fiduciary investment advisory firm, which means that our job is simply to provide the best possible advice to our clients and put their interests above our own. Next. As I said, I'm really old. I've been in the business for 30 years. I've got a few professional designations, including the certified financial planner. I'm an accredited estate planner, and I also do a lot of philanthropic planning. So I'm a chartered advisor in philanthropy. And some of these other things are just nice recognitions and awards, but I do firmly believe in giving back to the community. I was listening to the Tech Hub mission, which talked about inclusion in the community. That's a very, very important part of being socially responsible. I think a very important part of being socially responsible is giving back. And as a firm, we truly strive to meet that objective. Josh. So my partner, Josh, is a career changer within the last 5 or so years. Josh had a very successful branding and marketing firm for a long time. And now he is a financial advisor who's made it his mission in life to preach the message of socially responsible and what we call ESG and sustainable investing. He's an accredited investment fiduciary. He's been quoted in the media, a variety of media on a number of different ESG topics, and he walks the walk. He's a vice president of the board for the Arthur Marshall National Wildlife Refuge, which takes care of a huge, I shouldn't say takes care of, helps to oversee and take care of a huge swath of land essentially in South Florida here that is a preserve area. So Josh, before we send this over to you, I want to set this up for a couple of things. First off is that when I started 30 years ago, there was not much that was available in what we called back then SRI, or socially responsible investing. There were only a couple of companies that even offered options or opportunities to be able to do this. And now it has the floodgates have opened, and people are starting to realize that it's important to align their values with their investment process. And I say that to our clients all the time. My job is not just to help them grow money so that they can have more money. My job is to figure out what they want, where they are right now, and how do we close that gap by determining what their values are and what steps we need to take to help them get there. Socially responsible and ESG investing is just one tool in our toolbox, and it will apply to a lot of different people. So listen to what Josh has to say about it and see if it applies to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so happy to be here with you and to talk about this passion I have and share it with all of you. So let's start with a definition of ESG and sustainable investing. I've cobbled this together over a few years here. The practice of incorporating ESG factors, environmental, social, governance criteria, in investment decisions to ensure that assets are being directed to responsible corporations that strive to positively impact employees, the planet, and its inhabitants. And John Hale of Morningstar, who's somebody I really appreciate, he's a great follow on social media. I'll put up another piece of material from him in a little while. Recently, put it more succinctly, he just said, it's investing in the good health of the planet, people, and importantly, profits. And that means profits for the companies and for the investor. So the space goes by many names, and it's really instructive to look at how these names developed over time. And it's important to remember also that you could hear any of these terms spoken in relation to sustainable investing. So socially responsible investing, ESG investing, which is actually a misnomer, impact investing, and sustainable investing. In today's world, as people are learning about this, they could all be referring to sustainable investing. So these monikers came into being over time, and the first one was socially responsible investing, as Cary mentioned. And the first socially responsible mutual fund was introduced in 1971 by a firm up in New England. And I laugh all the time when people say, oh, people who'd like to denigrate sustainable investing say, oh, it's a marketing gimmick. Well, it's a marketing gimmick that's been in development for 50 years, since 1971. And the approach back then was what we refer to as an exclusionary or divestiture approach, because there was no such thing at the time as ESG ratings. And the idea was divesting from corporations that were doing harm in the world. And at that time, could have been armament companies, companies producing Agent Orange, nuclear energy, companies that were involved in apartheid in South Africa was a very big divestiture movement in the 70s and 80s. And some of the qualities of this divestiture are still being undertaken today, because we have fossil fuel companies, plastics, tobacco. Those were a part of it back then, and they've continued to be involved in exclusionary divesting investment today. Responsible investing came to be a term in 2006 when the principles of responsible investment were introduced by the United Nations. This was a huge turning point in the entire space, because it was the first time, although ESG had been a term in the past, it had never been codified in any set of principles or process. And I'll just show you that. Here's a photo of Kofi Annan, who was the UN Secretary General, on the floor of the stock exchange in 2006 with the signatories and employees at the UN who were involved in the principles for responsible investment process. So there were 6 principles, and interestingly, the first 3, as I've underlined here, actually refer to ESG. We will incorporate ESG issues into investment analysis and decision-making processes. We will be active owners and incorporate ESG issues into ownership policies and practices, and we will seek appropriate disclosure on ESG issues by the entities in which we invest. So the question here is, who is the we? We will incorporate ESG issues. We will be active owners and incorporate ESG. We will seek appropriate disclosure on ESG. Who's the we? Well, the we was institutional investors, pension funds, foundations, sovereign wealth funds. And why this is important is institutional investors have a lot of money, and therefore they have leverage. And they could start talking about corporations and fund companies about starting to pay attention to ESG issues. So this, for me, was a turning point in the field, and it's not recognized as such that regularly. Couple of interesting things. 1 to 2 years after this was signed, ESG ratings companies started to come into being because investors were starting to look for ways to better understand whether corporations were being good corporate citizens. And the principles of responsible investment were signed with 100 signatories. Now there are over 3,000 and counting. So some people today refer to ESG investing. That's actually a misnomer, as you're probably gathering from this discussion so far. ESG is environmental, social governance, data analysis, and a ratings process. But you will hear people, especially now that it's become a catch-all term, using ESG investing as a label. Impact investing is another label. People will refer to it as a catch-all for the space, but impact investing is actually institutional money that is trying to affect change in a very specific area. So let's say it's a foundation and they care deeply about affordable housing or water quality, could be anything. And they take a portion of their funds and direct it exactly in a narrow target at that space to impact change. So that's the correct definition of impact investing, but you'll hear about it as a catch-all. And then sustainable investing is where we are now. And I think that this became the key phrase for the space as a result of the corporate sustainability movement primarily, but Morningstar started using it a few years ago. And Morningstar has a very high profile and does a lot of work in sustainable investing. And that certainly impacted it. And now companies like BlackRock, huge money management firms have made the move to sustainable investing. So what are the benefits of sustainable investing for an individual? First and foremost, it's investing for a return. The performance trend is competitive or incrementally stronger than traditional investing over the last 5 years. You're having a positive impact on the planet and humanity and specific causes that you might care about. And one thing that's really kind of overlooked, I think, is the emotional fulfillment and satisfaction of directing assets to make a difference in the world without sacrificing performance. Common ESG criteria. So you want to know, how are these rating companies judging corporations within each of these categories? In the environment, and these are just samples of potential criteria. They have others, and it depends on the rating company and their process. But in the environmental criteria, green building, energy efficiency and carbon reduction, water use and conservation, recycling, toxin reduction, waste management, protecting natural resources and biodiversity. In the social, diversity and inclusion, labor relations, labor standards, workplace benefits, community development, compensation, customer satisfaction, and an important one, community relations. And in governance, board and executive diversity and inclusion, bribery, corruption policies, board independence, lobbying activities, corporate political contributions, and risk mitigation, which is a huge one. Actually, one thing about this slide, What's one interesting point to think about is that if a company has a very high governance rating, it usually means they're going to have a high environmental and social rating, because governance is the key. If you have great governance, it's likely that you're going to be doing the right things in other areas. It is possible to have a company that might have a high environmental rating within the ESG ratings, but have a low governance rating, for example, if they're a mess on governance. And that actually does occur occasionally. So what makes a highly rated ESG stock specifically? We looked at that criteria. Now we can look at one company that does it very well. And I'm sure you are all familiar with this logo right here. This is the corporate sustainability homepage from Microsoft's corporate social responsibility page. This site, just on their corporate social responsibility, is, I would say, at least 100 pages. It's amazing. So Microsoft is doing it right. And I would say that I know of no large capitalization ESG fund that doesn't hold Microsoft in the top 5 holdings. So if any of you find one, I'll be very interested. Please email me, but it's incredible, the work that they're doing on this front. And here's what they do. The sampling of socially responsible and sustainability initiatives at Microsoft. And this is a short list, it's much longer than this, but these were the most noteworthy. All of these statistics are from the last year or fiscal year, one or the other, at Microsoft. They're going carbon negative by 2030. That's negative, not neutral. Zero waste certified facilities since 2016. Eco-friendly product design. 750 million in loans and grants for affordable housing in Puget Sound area near Seattle, which is their home. Contributed 42 million to humanitarian emergencies around the world. 4 million to diversity-owned businesses. 1.9 billion in goods and services donated to nonprofits. Diversity and inclusion is embedded into the culture. The CFO is a woman. 3 worldwide markets are led by women. 5 women on the 12-member board of directors. Employees donated 221 million with a company, including a company match, to nonprofits worldwide, and volunteered more than 750,000 hours. So what we're seeing here is that Microsoft has embedded sustainability as a central theme in its business model and culture. And if you'd like to visit, I've put their corporate responsibility page right here. You can also just search Microsoft corporate responsibility, of course. So there's been an acceleration in mass adoption of sustainable investing. According to Morningstar, ESG fund asset flows have increased tenfold from 2018 to 2020, and they accounted for 25% of all net asset flows in 2020. Why did this happen? Why has this money started flowing like this, given that we knew about socially responsible investing since 1971, and the principles of responsible investment were established in 2006? There was a myth about sacrificing performance in order to invest with your values, and that has been debunked as we've had enough time to track performance of some of these ESG funds. And I'm going to share some index charts with you in a minute. Sustainable investing offers competitive or higher returns. So once people started accepting that, it shattered the performance myth, which was a big hindrance. Improved ESG data and analysis still needs improvement. There are more companies coming on all the time who are providing ESG ratings, but it has been much improved. And in fact, you can see this for yourselves. If you go on a free site, for example, like Yahoo Finance, you can look at Morningstar sustainability ratings for mutual funds on those descriptions of the fund companies now. So Morningstar you may be aware, they have a 5-star rating system for mutual fund performance, 5 stars being the highest performance. they've recently introduced a 5-globe sustainability rating. So go look at a mutual fund on Yahoo Finance. You'll see both the performance rating and the sustainability rating. That kind of analysis being available to the public has been huge. And the other reason is the high-profile macro themes that have become so much a part of the mass consciousness over the last few years. Climate change, social justice last year, of course, COVID has been a part of it, diversity and inclusion, and the need for vigorous corporate governance. This is John Hale, and just to reiterate the performance issue, he made this comment in February. Investment performance is one of the reasons why more assets are flowing into sustainable funds. As sustainable funds have built good performance records, lingering doubts about their ability to deliver competitive returns have diminished. Again, I highly recommend, if you want to pay attention to the space, to follow John on LinkedIn and Twitter. He's excellent. So here's an actual graph of money flows on a quarterly basis into sustainable funds. And what's interesting is from 2013 to the end of 2018, it's essentially level. And then in 2019, it took off. And if you look at the on a quarterly basis in 2019, in the last quarter, it actually doubled in the last quarter from the previous 3 quarters. And then in 2020, the same thing happened. The flows doubled from the flow in 2019, but then in the last quarter, amazingly, it doubled from the earlier quarters in 2020. And I put this arrow in at about 21.5 billion because the first quarter of 2021 was 21.5 billion in flows, which was another quarterly record. I'm going to share 2 graphs with you that show more performance of sustainable funds worldwide. This is a S&P 500 graph from MSCI. The S&P 500 is a market capitalized weighted index of the largest US publicly traded companies. And what we're showing here in blue is ESG leaders. In green is the MSCI S&P traditional. So the green side is the traditional index. The blue side is the index filtered for ESG leaders. And you can see 5 years is on the right, 3 years is next, and 1 year. The ESG leaders has outperformed on a 5, 3, and 1 year basis. And the outperformance last year was 1.4%. And then another one, just to reinforce this is an international index. This is the MSCI EFA index, which consists of large and mid-cap securities across 21 developed international markets, excluding the US and Canada. This is primarily Western Europe, Australia, and some Asian countries. Again, looking from right to left, you see the 5, the 3 year, and the 1 year performance. Outperforming over all 3 time periods. And the amazing number is that last year, the EFA ESG leaders versus traditional outperformed by 2.7%. So what's it like to do sustainable investing as an individual? It's interesting because we use the same diversification and asset allocation strategies that we use for traditional investing. We look at your age and time horizon and specifically at the causes that you're interested in for ESG. But we just put an ESG filter on top of this same exact process we would go through if you were a traditional investor. Some people think there's a great mystery to this, but that's all that happens. And more than 400 open-ended mutual funds and ETFs focused on ESG now exist across all asset categories, indexing large cap, mid cap, small cap, all categories. And we also can customize for your values, beliefs, and causes. And it's important to be careful to ensure that the fund holdings that you have match your intended goals. Occasionally, there will be ESG funds, especially the indexed funds, that you think may be accomplishing exactly what you want, but you may find, oh, there are some fossil fuel companies in that index fund, and I'm all for climate change and don't want fossil fuel companies. I'm going to turn it over to Cary now.
So where can you come up with the money, or how can you make these investments in companies that you determine are socially responsible? And the answer is there's a lot of different ways. So one of the most common ways to do this is through either a 401k or through an IRA that you might have. And any of the investment managers that Josh has referred to, and we're in a bit of a compliance pickle. I can't call out specific investment companies on a public setting like this. If you have questions about specific investments, you can email us and we'll put that up at the end of this presentation. But you can make these investments in your IRA. You can use a fund. You can buy individual companies that you believe exhibit good qualities, or you can purchase what's called an ETF or an exchange traded fund. And I see one of our commentators brought up ETF ideas. An ETF is a basket of securities. Usually that basket of securities doesn't change very frequently, which we would call a passive ETF. But if it does, and it can, we would call that an active ETF. That ETF or that would be run by a sponsor company, and that sponsor company would be responsible for putting together the securities that were going to go into that ETF and monitoring those companies to make sure that they exhibited the same types of criteria that you were looking for. You can also use your personal investment accounts, your brokerage accounts, your accounts that you have at online brokerage firms. Our clients, we custody our clients' assets at National Financial, which is part of Fidelity, and our clients can use their accounts at National Financial to invest in ESG type investments. 529 plans. What's a 529 plan? Some of you guys might be so young that you either just used one or you don't know what they are because you don't have any kids yet. But a 529 plan is a college savings plan that you can establish for a child when they're born, or you can establish it, quite frankly, even before they're born by putting it in your name and later transferring it into the name of your children. There's only one state that we're aware of that has an ESG option inside their 529 plan. However, you can use any state's 529 plan. Just because you live in Florida or Ohio or New York doesn't mean you're limited to using that plan. There might be a small tax reason to do so, but if you live in Florida, there is no tax reason because Florida doesn't have a state income tax. So if you want to have a socially responsible 529 plan, we can use a Nebraska plan. Donor advised funds. These are funds that we set up for families that want to make large charitable contributions. And usually we are implementing some type of ESG process inside of those funds. And you can even have a life insurance policy that has investments inside of it. And those investments can be ESG related. Slide. So how do you go about this process? What do you do to actually implement this? The first thing is you figure out what's important to you. And then you determine what types of investments am I willing to make based on what's most important to me. So if climate's the most important thing to you, you might want to focus a lot of your energy and attention on those types of issues. If social justice is most important to you, likewise, we find companies, we find investments that identify and align with what your goals and beliefs are. Number two is what Josh referred to earlier, is that we need to assess what is your risk tolerance, your time horizon, and how should we be investing your money. That's something is really a personal, individualized decision. We set those goals for asset allocation based on those analysis above. And asset allocation means how much do you have in risk assets versus how much do you have in safe assets. I'm using generic terms. it can get really complex, and I don't want to get in the weeds in the limited time that we have right now. And then you design a portfolio either on your own, using maybe an online tool, or working with a financial advisor to come up with what your particular specific ESG plan is. Josh is a great resource for this. Even if you don't want to hire Josh to help you invest your money, he'll probably kill me for saying this. You're welcome to call him, ask him questions, use him as a resource. Okay, one more. One last thing. Does anybody work for a company, or does your company have a 401k? If they don't have a 401k, you might want to ask them why they're not helping you save for your retirement, and that maybe they should consider having a 401k plan. If they do have a 401k plan, you might want to ask, do we have an ESG or socially responsible investment choice inside the plan? Most companies don't. But it's so easy to add them because most providers will allow your company to put an ESG fund inside of the plan, but you have to ask. So if you have questions about that, if you want us to look at a particular 401k plan and see if there's an ESG option, we can do that. It also shows that you're an employer that gives a crap, that you believe that there should be some change in the world, and that we're going to vote with the dollars that our employees are putting into their retirement plan. And 401ks can also have ESG-based equity funds. They can have bond funds. They can have target date funds. So if you're going to retire in 2050, it can be a target date ESG fund that is for somebody that would normally retire in 2050. Slide. I said this, ask your employer. Next. The other thing is, it's really nice, is that if you don't have a 401k plan right now and you are an employer, your employer gets a tax credit for setting up a new plan, which will pretty much cover almost all of the costs of establishing a new 401k. And most companies don't realize this. They think, I don't want to put a 401k in place because it costs me a bunch of money. You can do it and have the government subsidize it and do a great thing for your employees. So we're happy to help. We're happy to be a resource. We suggest that you spread the word about sustainable investing. It's obviously important to us. It's obviously important to have mission-driven values in the company that you're working for. And we've got a great resource in Josh, who is the subject matter expert on sustainable and ESG type investing. We're limited in the types of questions that we can answer here, but Josh's email is right here at josh@carystamp.com. We really appreciate everybody logging in today, and you're welcome to reach out to either of us with any types of follow-up questions. Thank you so much. And the chats, we've really enjoyed all the feedback and the comments in the chats. Monica, thank you for promoting my YouTube channel. And I also have a podcast called Business in Paradise, where I talk to people that have built significant businesses right here in South Florida. So visit either one of those things or feel free to reach out. Monica or Josh, I'll turn it back over to you guys. Thank you for joining us.
I just want to step in and thank everybody too. And this would be a great, if you're interested in chatting with us, this is a great slide to take a screenshot of. This has all of our contact information. And I also reiterate what Cary said. I encourage you to look at our YouTube channels. Cary has an amazing channel with over 80 videos on financial planning topics. And I have a channel dedicated to specifically to sustainable investing. I've got a few more videos I'm posting next week. Thank you all. And I'll turn it to Monica.
Cary and Josh, that was amazing. I didn't even think about sustainable investing until now. And it's like, we went from just having this lunch and learn to having, we're going to start planning a panel discussion to talk about this. And I know you guys will be there to join us and comment in the chat. So I really want to thank you guys for bringing awareness, for taking the time, and everybody else in the audience who believe in this mission, believe in changing the world together. So I'm going to send out a recording of this, and I did screenshot your information, Josh and Cary. You guys have always been helpful. So anyone in the audience, you have any questions, please reach out to them. They've helped CEOs of Tech Hub. They've helped founders of Tech Hub. They're the people to know down here. And I'm excited to see you guys again. So I hope everybody has an amazing weekend. Stay safe, enjoy the sun, put on sunscreen, and I don't know, have a great day. So
Thanks, Monica. It's great to be partners with Tech Hub.
yes, of course. All right,
Thanks,
we'll see
Nikki.
everybody soon.
Take
Bye.
care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Everyone.
Thanks.